They said it would change the way humanity touched the sky. That morning, the Hindenburg floated above New Jersey like a dream made of silver, steady, silent, almost holy. Sunlight rippled across its skin as if blessing a new age of flight. Below, children chased its moving shadow through fields of grass, their laughter mixing with the hum of distant cameras. Reporters straightened their ties and microphones, voices bright with pride and optimism. For a nation clawing its way out of the Great Depression, that airship was more than a machine. It was a promise, a gleaming symbol that progress could still soar. Inside, passengers sipped coffee, officers joked softly, the floor vibrating with the faint, invisible breath of hydrogen. A quiet hiss slipped through the metal, a warning lost to excitement. On the ground, a father lifted his son and whispered, "Remember this, you're watching the future." The sky was calm, the world unaware. Cameras rolled, and somewhere inside that floating marvel, the countdown had already begun. Inside the Hindenburg, life moved like a gentle waltz in the clouds. Silver light streamed through wide windows, glinting off crystal glasses as passengers sipped champagne and traded stories about cities that now looked impossibly small below. The air was calm, filled with quiet pride, a feeling that humankind had finally conquered the heavens. By the glass, a young couple leaned close, whispering about America, jobs, a house, a fresh start that seemed as light as the air carrying them. In the lounge, a journalist scribbled in his notebook, "The sky has never felt this safe." Crewmen walked the narrow corridors, confident and proud, hands steady on polished valves. One of them, barely 20, grinned and said, "If heaven had a sound, it'd hum like this." Laughter rippled through the room. Even the captain allowed a small smile, his fingers resting on the helm like a conductor's. Below, farmers stopped their trucks to watch. Children waved at the golden giant drifting through the late afternoon sun. For a few precious moments, it didn't feel like metal or fire, it felt alive. A radio hummed a slow swing tune, soft and flawless. Someone snapped a photograph, blurred, imperfect, but brimming with joy. The kind of picture that, decades later, makes you ache for a world that still believed in miracles. Voice softens for them, the sky wasn't danger. It was peace, proof that mankind could rise. As the light faded, the Hindenburg descended gracefully toward Lakehurst, its silver body glowing like a promise, a miracle coming home. By dusk, the air began to change. What had been gentle and golden all afternoon turned uneasy, the wind twisting in thin, restless spirals. The Hindenburg drifted lower through the darkening sky, its silver skin glinting faintly as the world beneath grew quiet. Inside, the laughter faded, replaced by the rhythm of duty boots on metal floors, voices low, the hum of hydrogen pulsing through pipes like a distant heartbeat. In the control room, a young engineer frowned at a gauge that flickered high, then dipped again, a nervous gesture quickly ignored. Routine, he told himself. Always routine. Below deck, a mechanic caught a whiff of gas that lingered a second too long. He ran his hand along a valve, feeling the vibration of the ship, steady, but somehow wrong. Outside, lightning shimmered faintly on the horizon. Ground crews stared upward, shading their eyes, trying to decide whether the sky was friend or threat. "Just static," someone muttered, though no one dared to laugh. A soft crackle split through the radio mid-song, turning a note of swing music into sharp static. A steward reached to fix it, his fingers trembling as his reflection wavered in the glass, pale, uncertain. Somewhere nearby, a camera flashed, catching a faint wisp near the hull, almost invisible, like a ghost of smoke. In the cockpit, the captain's voice came steady, practiced, "Prepare to dock." To those around him, it sounded like command. To the man holding the valve below, it sounded like a prayer. And then, stillness. A single heartbeat suspended in air. The kind of silence that only comes before history breaks. It happened faster than memory could form a word. A blinding flash, pure white, merciless, ripped through the belly of the ship. The air itself ignited, folding heat, light, and sound into one terrible instant. For a fraction of a second, the Hindenburg hung suspended in midair, glowing from within like a dying star. Then came the scream, not from the sky, but from the ground. And suddenly the world turned red. Reporters dropped their cameras, microphones caught the unfiltered chaos, the roar of flame, the pounding of footsteps, the voice that history would never forget. Oh, the humanity! People scattered in every direction as fire rained down from above, fabric and steel falling like molten snow. The once graceful airship became a torch in the clouds, its skin unraveling in ribbons of fire. Inside, chaos clawed through corridors of smoke. Crewmen stumbled, gasping for air, eyes seared by heat. A mechanic reached for a hatch that had already vanished into flame. Someone shouted a name, no answer, only the shriek of tearing metal. The captain gripped the wheel, shouting orders no one could hear, his voice swallowed by the inferno. The sky itself seemed to scream with them. Below, families stared upward in disbelief, the proud symbol of progress collapsing into a nightmare of fire. A father shielded his son from falling debris. The boy, trembling, whispered, "Is it supposed to do that?" The explosion pulsed again, a second breath, deeper, crueler, as the airship disintegrated in midair. Reporters cried while narrating live, their words trembling, This is the worst thing I've ever seen." People clawed through the fence, desperate to help, ignoring the heat that burned their hands. A woman ran barefoot through the mud, calling for her brother, her dress catching fire as she vanished into the haze. The flames didn't roar, they screamed, devouring everything. A cameraman dropped to his knees, still filming, tears streaking the lens. Around him, the world was ending, yet he couldn't stop. No one thought of headlines, only of who might still be alive. Fire trucks arrived, sirens warping in the heat, water hissing uselessly against the inferno. The skeleton of the ship groaned, twisted and fell, 1,000 tons of memory crashing into the earth. The wind turned black with soot. Ash clung to faces like grief made solid. Through the haze, the reporter's voice cracked once more, smaller now, almost a whisper, I can't talk. Ladies and gentlemen, everything's gone." Then came silence, sharp ringing, endless. Smoke curled toward the darkening sky, carrying the last trace of hope with it. A man's watch lay in the mud, its hands stopped at 7:25 p.m. For 36 souls, time ended there, burned into history, eternal in its final breath. Smoke drifted low across the field, heavy, human, unbearable. The wreckage of the Hindenburg still glowed faintly, its steel ribs twisted like bones beneath a bruised sky. The air smelled of ash and rain, the kind that clings to skin and memory. A fireman moved through the debris, each step sinking into the soaked earth. His boots hissed on embers as he bent to pick up a pocket watch, melted, silent, its glass fused to time. Nearby, someone whispered, "They're still breathing," and suddenly, everyone ran. A medic knelt beside a woman, her face blackened but eyes open, glassy with shock. He took her burned hand, trembling, and said nothing. There were no words left that fit inside this kind of silence. A reporter sat on the ground, microphone charred in his lap, staring at it as if expecting it to speak again. His breath came ragged, the rhythm of disbelief. He pressed a hand to his chest. The only sound left was his heartbeat, too loud, too alive. Somewhere in the smoke, a boy called for his father, his voice fading into the wind until it didn't sound human anymore. It sounded like memory itself trying to breathe. Soldiers moved carefully through the wreck, covering bodies one by one, each motion tender, like tucking someone in for the last time. Far away, church bells began to ring, slow, uneven, out of sync with the world. Voice breaks, they said air couldn't burn. But it did, and when it did it took more than metal. The camera pulls back. Rescue lights flicker faintly against the darkness. Nothing moves now, except the smoke, rising slow, like a soul refusing to leave. In the pale light of morning, the wreck seemed smaller, as if the sky itself had already begun to forget. Twisted beams jutted from the ground like broken ribs, smoke still whispering upward into a world that had moved on overnight. But the cameras had seen everything, and so had America. For the first time, a nation had watched tragedy not through rumor or print, but lived frame by frame, second by second, through the trembling eyes of those who couldn't look away. People didn't just read about loss anymore, they heard it echo through the radio, felt it tighten in their chests. Before dawn, newspapers hit the streets, ink still wet. Headlines shouted what the morning air could no longer carry: airship explodes before hundreds. On quiet porches, men stared at the ground, coffee cooling in their hands. Women gathered around radios, waiting for a name that would never come. The survivors spoke softly, their words stripped of grandeur. "It wasn't the fire that scared me," one whispered. "It was how fast hope disappears." Engineers combed through the ruins, drafting careful blueprints for a sky that would never be flown the same way again. In classrooms and hangars, children learned a new word that week: hydrogen, and what it could do when pride forgot fear. The sky stayed empty for a while. Maybe it needed to grieve, to remind. Years later, in a quiet museum, tourists paused before a melted fragment of hull sealed behind glass. A young boy traced its jagged edge with his eyes and asked, "Why did it fall?" His mother looked up at a photograph, the Hindenburg shining flawless against a clear sky, and whispered, "Because even dreams can burn." Voice softens, the Hindenburg didn't just fall from the clouds. It brought us back to earth, to humility, to consequence, to the truth that every miracle carries a shadow. As the music fades, the camera lingers on smoke drifting upward, turning gold in the rising sun. Wind moves across the silent field where it all began. And for a single breath, it feels as though the air remembers.